I never thought I'd hear those words from Ben. Not so loudly, not so cruelly. Matilda abandoned us years ago. The moment he said it, the air around me thickened, the laughter at the family barbecue fading like a bad dream. Abandoned? Me? I could feel every eye drifting toward me, some curious, some skeptical, others eager to believe whatever story Ben was spinning. I stood frozen, the scent of grilled meat and summer blooms disappearing behind a wall of shock. But the truth, the one no one saw, was buried deep beneath their assumptions. I'm Matilda Simpson, 38 years old, a financial analyst in the heart of New York City, with 15 years of blood, sweat, and sleepless nights behind me. My family calls me the responsible one, the fixer, the silent provider, but none of that ever makes it into their stories. I'm the one who picks up the slack when bills pile up, who wires money to keep the lights on and the roof over Grandma's head when times get tough. I cover mortgages when relatives falter, juggling spreadsheets and bank accounts like a magician who no one applauds. It's a quiet role, invisible to many, but essential. Last week, I sent texts and emails to cousins, my sister Lisa, and even Mom, trying to arrange a simple family dinner. Only Ben replied, but not to bridge the distance. Instead, he twisted the truth, painting me as cold and selfish to gain sympathy. What they don't realize is that I hold a secret, a quiet power that could upend everything. For now, though, I swallow the pain and keep the peace, hoping things might change someday. Growing up, the lines were drawn in bold, unforgiving strokes. I remember my 16th birthday like it was yesterday, the way Mom and Dad's eyes lit up when they handed Lisa the keys to a brand new car, wrapped in a shiny red bow. Me? I got a heartfelt card and a modest gift, the weight of their expectations pressing down on my chest. Ben was always the golden child, basking in the spotlight, soaking up praise and trust like sunlight. Our parents saw him as the heir to the family legacy, the future they were building toward. I tried to rationalize it, telling myself, it's just their way of showing love. But the sting came sharpest on senior prom night. I asked Dad to pick me up, imagining a moment we'd share. Instead, he refused flatly. Ben needs the car more, he said, dismissing me like a forgotten shadow. That night, the message wasn't just clear, it was deafening. I learned early to stay silent, to fold myself into smaller spaces, to hide my hurt behind a mask of quiet compliance. That silence became my shield, protecting me from further wounds, but also my cage, trapping me in a role I never asked for. I watched from the sidelines as Ben danced through life, the favorite, the chosen one, while I carried the weight of invisible burdens. It wasn't just family. This pattern echoed in my work life, in every place where I gave but wasn't seen. I wanted to scream, to demand recognition, but I swallowed the words, telling myself that dignity was in endurance. Over the past 6 years, I've silently carried more than just emotional weight. I've paid the mortgage on the family home, over $30,000 annually, adding up to almost $180,000. Each month, I transferred funds, ensuring the house stood firm against foreclosure, even when no one else could or would help. I covered medical bills when emergencies struck, chipped in for college tuition when cousins struggled, and canceled 3 vacations Daniel and I planned to take, sending the money home instead. Daniel often asks, "Why do you keep giving without standing up for yourself?" But I can't explain the love that roots me here. Lisa and Mom watch it all unfold, silent witnesses, saying little while Ben eyes my efforts with simmering jealousy. The house, legally in my name, is my secret weapon, a fact I keep tucked away, hoping peace and gratitude will one day replace suspicion and resentment. Ben's narrative has always been the opposite. He paints me as the selfish one, the cold cousin who abandoned them all emotionally. They don't see the hours I spend fixing problems, the sacrifices I make so quietly that only Daniel knows the full cost. I want to believe they'll notice, that kindness and loyalty will eventually be rewarded. But beneath it all, I can't shake the feeling of being trapped, the quiet ache of unrecognized devotion. The first time Ben humiliated me publicly was at Aunt Claire's birthday dinner, an event that was supposed to bring joy, but instead sent shockwaves through my carefully maintained calm. Standing in the center of the room, with relatives gathered close, Ben's voice cut sharp and loud. "Matilda? She's the one who left us all behind," he said, a smirk curling his lips as eyes darted around the table, searching for reactions. The room held its breath. Some faces twisted in surprise, others in embarrassment, a few in quiet agreement. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst, my cheeks burning with a flush that spread like wildfire. I wanted to shout back, to pull out my phone and show 6 years' worth of unanswered texts, but my voice caught in my throat. Instead, I excused myself, my legs barely steady as I left the table, the murmur of whispered opinions trailing behind me like a storm cloud. Daniel followed silently, his presence a steady anchor. "Don't let him get to you," he whispered, his hand steady on my back. I nodded, forcing a smile, telling myself, he's just stressed. It doesn't mean it. But as I stood outside, the night air cool against my overheated skin, a seed of doubt took root deep inside me. Was reconciliation even possible? Or was I caught in a web of misunderstanding I couldn't untangle? The silence I once embraced now felt suffocating, and for the first time, I wondered if my patience was a weakness rather than strength. Ben must have noticed my withdrawal because his attacks didn't stop. Instead, they sharpened. At family gatherings, I caught snippets of conversations halting when I approached, whispers that stopped abruptly as eyes flicked toward me. Aunt Claire's voice drifted faintly across the room one afternoon. "She's always been too sensitive. Can't take a little criticism." My heart sank with those words, the sting sharper because it came from someone I once trusted. Even Lisa, who used to call me every week, now let my messages go unanswered or replied with vague, clipped responses. The warmth between us thinned into cold politeness, as if the distance wasn't accidental, but deliberate. More troubling were the flying monkeys, relatives who, without prompting, began pressing me to just let it go, or apologize first, Matilda. Their voices carried a strange insistence, bending conversations toward my supposed faults, making me the one who needed to fix what was broken. I started doubting myself. Was I really overreacting? Was I the cold cousin Ben claimed I was? At night, I'd lie awake, heart pounding, questioning whether my efforts had blinded me to my own mistakes. The gaslighting was subtle, a slow poison that seeped into my veins, isolating me from the very family I'd tried so hard to keep together. One afternoon, I overheard Lisa on the phone, her voice low and uncertain. "I don't want to pick sides, but maybe Matilda should have reached out more?" The words twisted inside me like a knife. I wanted to scream at her, to demand why she was listening to Ben's lies, but the fear of pushing her away held my tongue. My world shrank. Support vanished like mist. I felt like I was watching my family turn their backs, pulled by Ben's tides. I clenched my fists, swallowing the bile of loneliness. I was the same Matilda who paid mortgages and covered debts, but now, to them, I was the villain. The truth was suffocating. Despite every instinct screaming for fight or flight, I chose quiet endurance. It was a lonely place, a place where love felt conditional and loyalty punished. But even in that dark silence, a stubborn ember glowed inside me. I refused to disappear completely. I held on to the fragments of my dignity, even as Ben's web tightened, trapping me in a narrative I never wrote. The idea of a family meeting felt like a fragile lifeline, a chance to untangle lies with facts and raw honesty. I sat across from Ben and Mom, the room heavy with unspoken tension. I spoke calmly, voice steady. "I've paid the mortgage for 6 years. I've tried reaching out countless times. I don't want blame. I want to understand what happened." My words hung there, clear and measured. Ben wiped away a tear with theatrical precision, voice trembling. "You abandoned us. We were hurting, and you just disappeared." Mom's eyes glistened with sympathy, nodding. "We just want peace, Matilda." Uncle Frank, our family's reluctant mediator, leaned forward, dismissing my evidence as excuses. His words felt like a slap. I had hoped for fairness, but those hopes crumbled in his judgment. Ben's narrative wrapped around the room like smoke, blurring the truth until it became his version. "Stop causing drama," Ben warned as the meeting dissolved. I left, the echo of his voice trailing behind me, a reminder that peace wasn't a gift, but a weapon wielded against me. The icy realization settled deep. This wasn't about resolution. It was about control. Alone in the cold evening air, I swallowed the bitter truth. My voice was drowned out, my plea unheard. The humiliation didn't stay confined to family walls. At my company's holiday party, a subtle but cruel whisper reached my ears. "She's the cousin who abandoned her family." A family member, someone I barely recognized anymore, had told my boss. The gossip spread like wildfire, invisible, yet suffocating. The next day, I lost a promising client, one who had trusted me for years. I saw the doubt in their eyes, the hesitation when I called back. Worse, Ben's campaign turned vicious. He twisted my past financial struggles, painting me as unreliable and reckless. The sting wasn't just personal, it was professional. Daniel stood by me, steadfast and fierce. But even old friends began asking questions with wary tones. When Lisa came to visit, I couldn't hold back anymore. "Are you siding with him?" I asked, the hurt raw and exposed. Her voice wavered, fragile. I don't know what to believe anymore." Her hesitation shattered me more than anything Ben said. The cold truth crystallized in my chest. Ben's attacks were no accident. They were a calculated assault meant to ruin me, piece by piece. The walls I'd built around my heart cracked under the weight of betrayal, and for the first time, I felt truly exposed. The humiliation was no longer just an emotional wound. It threatened to topple everything I'd built, everything I was. In the quiet aftermath, I sent Ben an email, an olive branch wrapped in hope. "We can't keep hurting each other," I wrote, laying bare my heart and extending forgiveness, hoping for a bridge to rebuild trust. I needed him to hear me, to acknowledge the sacrifices I'd made, the love I still held. His reply was a cold, sharp bullet. "I don't want your pity or your money." The rejection stung deeper than I expected, but I met it with quiet strength. I told Daniel, "I've done everything I could." I even asked Lisa to mediate between us, hoping for a neutral ground where truth might find light. She declined, burdened by family pressure. That moment was a fracture too deep to ignore. Ben's refusal to face honesty, his coldness, confirmed what I'd feared. Reconciliation was not just distant, it was impossible. The silence that followed felt heavier than ever, a final door closing. But even in that silence, I held on to one thing, my unwavering dignity, a quiet refusal to be erased. The silence from my family wasn't just loud, it was deafening. After I reached out, hoping to mend broken bridges, the cold shoulder only deepened. Ben seized on my vulnerability, spinning stories that twisted my intentions into manipulative schemes. I was no longer the quiet provider, but the villain in their narratives, the one who supposedly played the victim. Calls went unanswered, texts ignored, and Lisa, who once filled our conversations with warmth, stopped returning my messages altogether. I stared at my phone for hours, the screen lighting up with missed calls and unread texts from unfamiliar numbers or distant cousins whose names I barely remembered. The loneliness settled in my bones, a crushing weight that made every breath feel heavy. Daniel remained the only constant, his steady presence a fragile thread holding me together when the rest of the family unraveled. "You're not the problem," he reminded me one night, his voice soft yet firm as I curled up on the couch, exhausted and vulnerable. But even his reassurances couldn't silence the gnawing doubts inside. Maybe I was too much. Maybe my efforts were nothing but illusions, invisible to the people I loved most. Sleep became a stranger. The nights stretched endlessly as I replayed every word, every look, every silence. The house, which I legally owned and had sustained for years, felt like a prison, a symbol of how disconnected I had become. The family I thought I knew had turned into strangers whose eyes no longer held the warmth I once treasured. During the day, the weight of exhaustion pressed down like a physical force. At work, I forced myself into my usual routine, but the edges of my world blurred into a haze of fatigue and frustration. Every smile felt forced, every conversation a test of endurance. I caught myself shrinking in meetings, retreating from the spotlight even as my mind raced, trying to find a way out of the fog. It was a breaking point without a clear explosion, just a slow erosion of hope. Still, beneath the suffocating cloud, a faint spark flickered, fragile but stubborn. I wasn't ready to give up, even if the world had turned its back on me. Somewhere deep inside, a new resolve was quietly taking root, waiting for the moment to rise. I clung to Daniel's words like a lifeline. "You've done everything you can. Now it's time to protect yourself." I nodded, swallowing the bitter taste of betrayal. It wasn't just about family anymore. It was about survival. The silence and distance had carved out a hollow I wasn't sure I could fill, but I had to try. The nights remained restless, but the ember of determination grew stronger, pushing me beyond exhaustion into something colder, sharper. I was tired. Yes, tired of being invisible, tired of being blamed, but I was not defeated. Not yet. The breaking point came on a day I thought might offer some light, a rare chance to gather for Mom's 65th birthday. I arrived early, clutching a carefully wrapped gift, rehearsing the few words I might say to soften the tension. The familiar scent of roses and vanilla candles filled the air, but the warmth I sought evaporated the moment Mom stepped forward, her voice quaking but resolute. "I am disinheriting Matilda," she announced, eyes scanning the room. "From now on, the house and inheritance belong to Ben." The words cut sharper than any knife, slicing through years of silent sacrifice. A stunned hush fell over the family, the weight of betrayal pressing down like a physical force. Lisa's face paled, eyes wide with shock, while Ben's triumphant smirk spread like poison. My world fractured in an instant. The house, the one I had kept afloat through every financial storm, legally in my name, was suddenly claimed by forged papers and whispered lies. I could feel my knees weaken, a cold, sinking feeling wrapping around my heart. The air thickened with accusation and disbelief, but I saw the truth laid bare for the first time. The stories, the accusations, the gaslighting, they were all designed to erase me. Years of love and labor dismissed with the cruel finality of a judge's gavel. The veil lifted, exposing a family more willing to believe lies than face their own complicity. I wanted to scream, to demand proof, but the room blurred as tears pricked my eyes. The betrayal was total, irreversible, and it sunk deep into my bones. The hope I had clung to slipped away, replaced by a cold clarity that numbed the edges of my pain. I was no longer the hopeful girl begging for reconciliation. I was a woman stripped bare, forced to see the truth with unflinching eyes. The family I loved had chosen their side, and that night, I understood what that meant. I was broken, but beneath the shards, something new was forming, a resolve that would not bend or break again. The game had changed, and so would I. Back in the sanctuary of my study, the silence wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, suffocating yet necessary. I sifted through 6 years of texts, bank statements, emails, the digital footprints of my efforts and their neglect. Each unanswered message, each ignored call, was a testament to their abandonment. The pain was raw, but as I stared at the cold facts, something shifted. The grief burned away, replaced by a simmering anger that was sharp and focused, not reckless or wild. It was the kind of anger that fueled clarity. I saw the pattern now, the unreciprocated love, the erased sacrifices, the family's calculated erasure of my existence. The house wasn't just a building. It was my leverage, my weapon in a battle they had declared. "Never again," I whispered to the empty room, voice steady but fierce. The woman who endured in silence was gone. In her place stood a strategist, armed with documents, truths, and a growing arsenal of legal tools. I allowed myself to feel the grief, let it wash over me, but I refused to drown in it. The anger gave birth to purpose. This was no longer about survival. It was about reclaiming what was rightfully mine. The family's betrayal had been a brutal awakening, but it had awakened something powerful within me. I was ready to fight back, not with reckless fury, but with calculated precision. That evening, I sat down with Daniel, spreading the evidence across the table between us. Ben thinks he can erase me, I said quietly, my voice steady despite the storm inside. It's time to remind everyone who really holds the cards. Daniel's eyes met mine, calm and unwavering. You have the law on your side. Let's use it, he said, his confidence bolstering mine. Together, we mapped out the first steps, consulting lawyers, gathering every shred of proof, property deeds, mortgage payments, bank transfers, and email threads. The plan was clear: reclaim my rightful place and expose Ben's lies for all to see. Our focus wasn't just Ben. It was the network of relatives who enabled his narrative, those who turned a blind eye or whispered behind my back. The fight was bigger than family grudges. It was about truth, justice, and survival. I felt the cold clarity settle around me like armor, shielding me from doubt and fear. The first move had to be strategic, undeniable. I wasn't reactive anymore. I was proactive. This was my home, my legacy, and I was ready to defend both with everything I had. The game was no longer about silence or endurance. It was about standing tall and reclaiming my place, no matter the cost. I sat at the kitchen table, piles of documents spread before me like a battlefield map. 6 long years of hidden sacrifices and silent support lay bare in these files. Mortgage statements, medical bills, college tuition receipts. Each paper was a breadcrumb tracing the trail of my quiet labor, the invisible thread holding this fractured family together. I realized, with a cold clarity, just how much they depended on me, more than I ever allowed myself to admit. The weight of that realization crushed and empowered me all at once. Reaching for my phone, I called my lawyer, a trusted ally with a no-nonsense approach. I need to review every legal angle, I said, voice low but steady. Together, we pored over property deeds and payment records. The house, the fortress they tried to steal from me, was legally mine. Ben's claims were nothing but fabrications, forged signatures twisted to serve his greed. I felt a quiet victory stir within me, but I pushed it aside. This was just the first move. I documented everything, every unanswered text, every ignored call, meticulously noting timestamps that proved their neglect. The sting of their abandonment was sharp, but it fueled my resolve. Then, a revelation from court records caught my eye. Ben's secret debts, hidden deep in financial filings. A desperate man drowning beneath the weight of his own recklessness. It explained so much. His urgency, his lies. These vulnerabilities weren't weaknesses. They were pressure points, the keys to unlocking the truth. I leaned back, breathing in the stale morning air, my fingers trembling slightly. They took from me for years, I whispered to the empty room. Now the law is my shield and my sword. The enormity of it settled over me. A cold mantle I was ready to wear. Their dependence on me had been my burden, but now it was my leverage. I was done being invisible. For the first time, I saw the battlefield clearly, and I was ready to fight. That night, I shared the plan with Daniel, my voice sharp with purpose. This isn't just about the house anymore. It's about every lie, every betrayal. I have to expose it all. He nodded, his steady gaze a lifeline in the storm. We'll do this right, together. The fight had begun. Behind the steady facade I presented to the world, a tempest churned beneath. I spent long hours changing passwords, tightening security on every account tied to the family's finances. Bank logins, email credentials, even my phone's passcode. Nothing was overlooked. I updated my will, ensuring every legal document reflected my intentions clearly. The lawyer drafted formal challenges to the fraudulent claims, each page a silent weapon in my arsenal. At family gatherings, I wore a calm mask, a practiced smile that hid the storm swirling inside. I answered casual questions with vague but polite replies, careful not to reveal the battle brewing in the shadows. Daniel noticed the change and pulled me aside one evening, his brow furrowed. You're different now, stronger, more focused. Is this the calm before the storm? I gave him a faint smile, the weight of my secret resolve pressing down on me. Timing is everything, I murmured. They still think I'm the passive one. That's their mistake. The quiet hovered like a fragile glass dome, a deceptive piece masking the preparation beneath. Every detail was deliberate. No rash moves, No emotional outbursts. I was building a fortress of control, brick by brick, behind the scenes. The knowledge that they underestimated me gave me a cold satisfaction. I was no longer the woman they could dismiss or blame. I was a force gathering strength, waiting for the right moment to shatter their illusions. One afternoon, while sorting through old boxes in the attic, a dusty ritual of sifting through forgotten family relics, I stumbled upon an envelope tucked beneath a stack of faded photographs. It was heavy, the paper thick and yellowed with age. The handwriting was unmistakable. My grandfather's, addressed to my mother. My heart pounded as I unfolded the letter, the words inside a dagger twisting deeper than anything I'd imagined. The letter revealed a truth I wasn't prepared for. $200,000 from my grandfather's inheritance had been deliberately diverted by my own mother into Ben's accounts. Funds that should have been mine, reserved for my future, had disappeared into their collusion. The letter was notarized, dated 8 years ago, a legal bombshell hidden in plain sight. I felt a surge of disbelief mixed with a sickening betrayal. The depth of their deception was staggering. This discovery was more than a financial wound. It was a profound emotional rupture. They hadn't just sidelined me emotionally. They had stolen from me, deliberately and coldly. My mind raced, the implications swirling in a storm of anger and grief. This wasn't just about reclaiming property anymore. This was a demand for justice, a reckoning for years of theft and lies. The letter was a checkmate, a truth I could not ignore. My fight had gained a new urgency, and failure was no longer an option. I clutched the letter to my chest, my breath shallow and uneven. They thought they could erase me, I whispered, voice trembling but fierce. They were wrong. The weight of that hidden truth settled like fire inside me, fueling a resolve I hadn't known I possessed. With this evidence in hand, I was no longer just a victim. I was a force of reckoning, a storm gathering strength. The next morning, I sat with my lawyer, the letter spread out among the files. "This changes everything," she said softly, her eyes sharp with understanding. "We have a strong case now. This is undeniable." I nodded, the cold calculation sharpening my thoughts. The betrayal cut deep, but it had forged a weapon I would wield with precision. The family's web of deceit was unraveling, thread by thread. The first moves had to be decisive. I instructed my lawyer to file a formal dispute over the disinheritance and the forged documents that Ben paraded as truth. There was no room for errors. At the same time, I froze all financial support to the family home. The mortgage payments, the utilities, they were mine to provide no longer. Official notices were sent, legal language cold and unyielding. The house, my fortress, was now a battleground. The family began to feel the tremors almost immediately. Bills went unpaid, accounts were locked, and the quiet pressure of legal notices arrived like invisible blows. Whispers began to ripple through the family grapevine, questions about why the support stopped, murmurs of panic and confusion. Ben's carefully maintained facade started to crack. Banks flagged his debts, his credibility frayed like old rope. Calls to me were deflected, answered only through my lawyer's firm voice. I kept my composure, cold and methodical, the storm gathering in my silence. Daniel watched this transformation quietly, his eyes reflecting a mix of awe and concern. "You're different," he said one evening, the weight of the day heavy in his tone. "You're no longer just enduring, you're fighting." I nodded, the power coursing through me steady and unyielding. The first moves had unsettled them, shaken the foundations they had built their lives on. But the storm was far from over. Sitting alone in the dim light of the study, I felt the shift deep within me. The woman who had once been the silent supporter was gone. In her place stood a strategist, cold and purposeful, wielding truth and law like weapons. The battle lines were drawn. The first pieces moved with precision. The family's world was trembling, yet none could see the full extent of what was coming. I allowed myself a moment of calm, knowing this was only the beginning. The fight for justice was mine to win, whatever the cost. The day of the family meeting arrived with a tension that hung in the air like a thick fog. The room was packed, siblings, cousins, even Mom among them, her face pale and drawn. I could feel every eye on me, some skeptical, some curious, others guarded. But I had prepared for this moment with every ounce of resolve I could muster. Calmly, I began laying out the evidence, the payment records proving my contributions, the notarized letter revealing the stolen inheritance, and the unmistakable legal documents affirming the house was mine. My voice was steady, controlled, every word deliberate. "Ben's claims are baseless and forged," I said firmly, locking eyes with him. "The house belongs to me. The inheritance was stolen." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. I saw Ben's confident smirk falter, his posture stiffen. The air shifted palpably, the power dynamic flipping in an instant. I pressed on. "If there is no acknowledgement, no restitution, and no respect for the truth, I will pursue every legal avenue available." Silence descended, heavy and expectant, before murmurs of support quietly blossomed from those who had doubted me. For the first time, I was not the silent victim hidden in the shadows. I was the woman holding the undeniable truth, the one in control. I noticed the flicker of shock and doubt in their eyes, the cracks in the carefully constructed narrative Ben had spun. Watching his facade crumble, I felt a quiet surge of vindication. This was justice meeting its reckoning, and I was finally seen. The fallout was swift and unforgiving. Ben's credit lines were frozen. His phone buzzed nonstop with creditors demanding payment. Legal notices stacked up like unyielding walls. Meanwhile, private messages trickled in from relatives, many expressing quiet shock and second-guessing the stories they had believed. I read each message carefully, sensing the subtle shift in loyalties. Ben's frantic attempts at damage control, texts pleading for understanding, calls begging forgiveness, even a public apology, were met with unwavering silence from me. I had drawn my line in the sand, and no manipulation would breach it. The relatives who once stood by him now hesitated, some even reaching out with apologies for their previous silence or disbelief. The family's narrative unraveled at a staggering pace, exposing the truth beneath years of deception. Ben's isolation deepened as his debts surfaced and his lies collapsed under scrutiny. I felt no triumph in his downfall, only a somber acknowledgement that justice was a heavy burden. Each consequence was deliberate, a calculated consequence of years of betrayal. The weight of their enabling had finally shifted onto their shoulders. Yet I maintained my composure, refusing to be drawn into further drama. It was enough to know the truth was now undeniable, and that I was no longer the one sidelined or forgotten. Ben's desperation escalated in the days that followed. Threats of lawsuits arrived, wild and unfounded, alongside whispers of false rumors about me abandoning the family, shared with colleagues and mutual acquaintances. He even roped in relatives to pressure me, wielding emotional blackmail like a weapon, painting himself as the victim of a cruel family war. But I was prepared. Every threat was met with swift legal responses from my lawyer. Calls were ignored or redirected. I refused to engage with the chaos he tried to create. Some relatives, exhausted by the conflict, reached out with genuine apologies, reaching across the rift with tentative peace. I heard them, acknowledged their words quietly, but kept them at arm's length. Trust had been shattered too deeply. With each passing day, Ben's confidence eroded, replaced by a hollow desperation. His isolation was complete. The once charismatic manipulator was now a broken figure, stripped of power. I observed the family's attempts to manipulate the situation crumble like brittle paper against the fortress of my evidence and resolve. The tension that had once threatened to consume me now felt like a distant echo. I was no longer tangled in their games but stood apart, steady and unyielding. It was a lonely place, yes, but one I had fought hard to claim. The victory was quiet, lacking fanfare, but it was mine. The family's illusions had been shattered, and the truth remained. 6 months later, the quiet of my home was a balm I hadn't known I needed. The house was secure, free from debt, a tangible symbol of the fight I had endured and won. I no longer attended family gatherings. Their absence was a relief, not a loss. Daniel and I had grown closer, our bond strengthened by shared struggles and unspoken understanding. Boundaries were clear now, contact limited to those who respected them, no tolerance for lies or manipulation. Ben's ruin was a constant reminder of the cost of betrayal, And though the scars it left were deep, they no longer defined me. I found peace not in reconciliation, but in autonomy, in justice served and boundaries firmly set. Reflecting on the journey, I saw the transformation clearly, from hopeful giver to boundary setter, from silent supporter to a woman with unyielding clarity. The choice ahead was mine, to live free from the weight of false accusations, to embrace a future carved not by their demands, but by the respect I earned. At Christmas, it was Daniel, the kids, and me, around a smaller table, but the love there was bigger than ever. The scars lingered, but so did the strength, and for the first time in years, I felt fully free.